Hello, how are you doing,
Hello.
Chris?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good, and you?
I'm good. Okay, we can just get started. It's 5 o'clock. So I'll just start by saying that if you don't know, we're the Youth Activism Project. My name is Chris and I'm a board member. Basically, the mission of Youth Activism Project is to just empower youth to really create change on issues they're passionate about, and also just normalizing the youth in the decision-making process and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll let you introduce yourself, just your name, where you're from, where your deal is, and everything.
Yep. So my name is Manuel Teshe. I am originally from El Salvador, but moved to the United States about 6, 7 years ago. So for those 6, 7 years, I lived in Chelsea, where it's mainly where I got involved in multiple movements, student-led movements, so that, one of the things was so that we could get graduation outside. It was even posted on the Boston Globe. They wrote an article about it because it was the amount of students that got involved, and we were able to, get city council and school board involved as well. So that was one of the biggest
Yeah, like
involvements
your
I've
main.
seen.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
My mom is also from El Salvador. So that's cool. So I
yeah.
just wanted to let you could talk, maybe you can talk a bit more about your initiative at your high school. Like, who did you talk to? Who did you campaign with? How did you raise money if you had to raise money? You can talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. So originally, it started out with a group of 2, 3 students and a teacher, and it was almost at the end of the year. We were done with our AP tests, so we were just talking about what can we do, what project we can do to help students at Chelsea High School. And one of the issues brought up was that we used to hold graduation inside, and inside it meant in a gym. And the amount of people that went to graduation did not fit in the gym. So what administrators would do is that they would put families inside of the auditorium and just broadcast live the event to the auditorium. And
Yeah.
this doesn't happen in affluent communities. This doesn't happen in any other schools
Right, right.
that really care about the students. But I also felt like nobody had really brought this to the attention of the school board members to the degree of which we did. So what we did was when we had graduation of 2018, we were lucky to have some of the pictures of what was really going on in the auditorium and the gym. So in 2019, when we started out this movement, I'm sorry, in 2018, when we started out this movement, we gathered those pictures. And we went to the school board meetings. And, the one time we started going, we didn't stop until we were able to make some change. And the way we did it was we kept on going to the meetings. We kept on showing them the pictures, showing them the signatures of students and even some parents that signed it, demonstrating how, multiple classes, not even just a senior class, wanted to have graduation outside. But then, the school board said it was difficult to do it outside because the school had just renovated the field, and it costed about $3 million to renovate the football field, which was the ideal place to hold graduation outside. So they said they didn't want to ruin it. They didn't want to put chairs on it that would essentially damage the turf. So what we did, we told them, we can find alternatives. We can cover the turf. They said, no, that's going to cost you a lot of money. First, they said $60,000. Then they said $120,000. And then they said $160,000. When they said $60,000, I was like, we'll find a way. We'll start raising money.
Yeah.
And they still said, I mean, you can try. They just didn't think that we were actually going to try.
Yeah.
So, I kept on meeting with school board members, group of students as well. Met with the superintendent, Dr. Burke. Met also with one of the directors of facilities in Chelsea. His name was Joe Cooney. So we met and we talked about, what would be the cheapest price, what ways we could protect the turf at Chelsea High School. And again, they brought up the price. They said that was what was stopping us. So they gave us alternatives, and they said, we could do it at another park. But there were so many difficulties with doing it, with holding graduation at parks that were far away from Tulsi High School.
Right.
One of them was closed, but it was muddy the entire time.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't hold graduation
yeah.
there.
It's just not.
So we kept on pushing, we kept on going and giving out speeches. It wasn't just me, it was students of multiple classes. And at the end, it came down to if they really cared about the students or if they did not.
Yeah,
It turned out they did. So it was in December, in which they passed. They unanimously voted for giving $170,000 so that we could hold graduation outside.
that's
And it was a beautiful picture at the end. Hundreds of families outside. Everybody was, welcome to come in. There wasn't a limit as to whose family could go, whose could not, because it used to be you would get tickets.
yeah, yeah,
You would get four family members per student, and that just didn't add up. Even with only four people, the school still got overwhelmed. But
yeah.
thankfully, we were able to hold it outside, and it actually opened up the door for graduation outside now in the midst of the pandemic. So imagine having
Yeah,
graduation inside in the
exactly.
midst of the pandemic. It
Yeah,
wouldn't even have happened.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that was kind of how we were able to create some change, and
yeah,
it actually worked for the better now. Again in the pandemic.
yeah. That's really amazing, and it's one. Um, it's kind of frustrating how they were more worried about the field, which is just property, than like families and stuff. So speaking on that, coming from like a Latinx household myself with immigrants and stuff, I know how important it is for not just like your smaller family, but your extended family as well to like see that you're
Yeah.
successful and like doing stuff here in the United States. Um, but a lot of people may not understand that. So how did you kind of did you have a way to explain that to like school board or to other people who like how did you convince them?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's really basic. We just went in there and we talked about humanity. Humanity in the sense that families come
Yeah,
from different countries outside of the United States. They come here, they start working, they work day shifts, night shifts. They work full time, sometimes even two full time jobs, and they
right.
don't really have the chance to be involved in the student life of many young people that are in school right now, especially in high school. A lot of
Right.
my friends even, they said that they felt that their parents were a little bit distant because they spend their time the entire time working,
Yeah.
so they could pay for school, so they could pay for everything that they need, and maybe even go to college. So we just went there. We told our stories. We didn't add. We didn't take anything. We just said, what was going on with our families. We said how much this mattered, and thank God they listened. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate with that a lot. It's very important. So you yourself, you do a lot of work with like family inclusivity and like immigration justice. What else did you do after that? What were the next steps?
Um, Yeah, so 3 days before the graduation, actually, I was able to get an interview at an immigration firm in downtown Boston. It's called McMurray and Associates. So luckily, I got the job for the summer before I went off to college in Bucknell University. And I started out, just by doing change of addresses with clients and filing that in court. I
Yeah,
started out by doing some calls and trying to get a hang of the system that we used to use to kind of keep track of all the information. But now, actually, I am working in the SIJ department, which stands for Special Immigrant Juvenile. So what I'm doing right now is essentially putting together packets that tell the stories of many immigrant children that come to the United States and they have been either abused, neglected, or abandoned by their parents.
yeah,
So this happens a lot. We have thousands of clients, and a lot of them are children with that kind of past in which they have been abused by their parents, neglected, and abandoned. So what we're doing is there is the law that any child that meets the criteria that they have been abused, or neglected or abandoned, and they go to a probate court. It's a family court, depending on where they live. They are able to get protected status in the United States that then turns into a visa, which is a permanent residence in the country,
Yeah.
and that essentially opens all the doors in America for them.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, that's really great. So there's also been, I know we talked about, or you shared with us that you had, you were informed about something in Northampton, in Massachusetts, where they voted for non-citizens to vote. What was the whole thing? I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so the way I kind of got involved was that the city council of Chelsea, one of the members, she's the vice president, Judith Garcia. She told me about that Chelsea was going to hold the city charter review. So she sent me a copy of it. I started reading it. I started kind of getting involved in it. And one of the ideas that I got was that something that we are really missing in Chelsea is representation.
Yeah.
And that's because 67% of the population in Chelsea are Latinos, and a great majority of them are not citizens. And if you really think about the actual amount, the actual percent of people that are voting in Chelsea, and the ones that end up electing the representative that wins, at the end of the day, you're only counting a couple of thousand, probably 2,000 or 3,000 people that are being represented in the government, while you have a city that's about 50,000 people.
Right.
How do you cope with that? That only a small portion of them are being represented. And so I brought this idea. I brought it to the commission, to the committee that was talking about the city review. And the city attorney actually said it would be a little bit difficult to implement that, and that's because if we implement it, the state legislature has to approve it. That means they're going to be debating on it, and they're going to hold back for as long as it takes the city charter review. And that's going to affect the way we run the city because we need that city charter to be approved. And what happened in Northampton was the same thing. That the committee approved it on the city charter review, but it hasn't been approved yet by the state legislature, and is essentially what we're waiting. I do feel like right now we're at an impasse in which I feel like when I brought it up to the committee, nobody really kind of responded to it. They just heard what I said, and I don't know, I felt like probably it was something new to them. They hadn't thought about it, and it just probably shocked them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they didn't respond to it, and that really kind of got me concerned. So right now, I'm kind of thinking, how do we move on from there? If they're not going to include it in the city charter review, I'm still going to fight it. I'm still going to try to see and convince them to do it. It's the right thing to do. If we're really living a democracy, but only a couple of thousand get represented, and then the others are just left there to be ruled by the few, then what are we doing here?
Right. So was there progress in Northampton? What kind of happened there? And also, what's like the population like there? Is it a lot of white people? Is it a lot of Latinos or something? And do you think that maybe has an impact on whether Chelsea passes something and Northampton does?
Yeah, so Northampton, they did make progress. And that's because they did approve it on the committee level. And I'm sorry, you kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good. It's good. You froze a little bit.
Okay.
But I call it progress. They approved it on the committee level. That's good. They're just waiting to see the state legislature passes it or approves it. And I'm not really informed about the population of Northampton, but there is a good number of Latinos there. There's a good number of immigrants that are not citizens. But it's also a very small city. It's actually, I think it's a little bit smaller than Chelsea, so it's kind of a little bit easier to have your voices heard when your elected representatives are so close to you.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to talk about was so immigrants. I think there's a difference between how immigrants are treated in our country, and that's between like white
Um,
European immigrants and
I'm so
then
sorry. I think the connection is getting
okay.
lost.
Can you
Uh, okay, it's good.
okay. I'll repeat my question then. So I think that in the US there's a difference in how immigrants are treated based on just where they're coming from and skin color. So for example, European immigrants are treated differently than, you know, Latinx immigrants. And have you seen any of that in your work? Have you had to fight with that in your work or anything?
So luckily, I haven't had to face that kind of treatment at work, and that's because 90% of the workers at the firm I work at are Latinos or some Latino
Oh,
descent.
yeah.
There's a good number of them that are there's a good number of them that are attorneys, and we actually give me 1 second. I'll just hop off the
Yeah,
car.
it's okay.
Um, but I haven't had that kind of experience there at my work
Okay.
because we mainly focus on Latin America immigration.
Okay.
Immigrants that come from Latin America. So what's really good is that even the owner of the firm, he acknowledges that Latinos are important to our society,
Hmm.
and he keeps on hiring people that speak both English and Spanish, and are connected to the community. He has me drafting up some scholarships actually, so I'm gonna be distributing that actually this year so that some kids
Oh,
can get
okay.
some scholarships. So we're really doing kind of
Yeah.
most we can in our community. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the stuff you're doing. Um, so kind of going back to your proposal to um, Chelsea about the voting. So what are you kind of doing in the meantime? Are you waiting on them? Are you planning something? Like, what are your next steps for that? How are you going to tackle it?
Yeah, currently I am strategizing on how to implemented in the implement the right to vote for non-citizens in the city charter. It's definitely going to be a tough fight, and based on the first response that I got from when I went up to propose it, but I'm gonna fight to convince them. We're moving in that direction. Whether people like it or not, we're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep doing whatever I keep doing. What's really tough right now is that a lot of people are really focused on taking care of their families.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get a movement started when everybody is still trying to cope with what's going on in the pandemic and everything.
Right.
In me myself, currently I am a full-time paralegal and interpreter at the firm, and I'm also a full-time student. I manage to still do the 40 hours and still do all my classes at school.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit overwhelming when on top of that I'm participating in political campaigns, and also trying to get the right to vote for non-citizens of
Yeah.
Chelsea, and also some of the other problems that our schools are facing, that we were trying to tackle them. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of go with all of that, but I'm always keeping my mind as a priority. As long as I'm healthy, I'm gonna be able to fight for people. So I really have to, and I think people do this as well. Really, kind of only participate in what you can, never to overload, because then that kind of uh, dissolves kind of the strength that you can put into other activities. So I'm definitely doing the most I can.
Yeah. That was going to go into my next point. Since you're doing all of this and you have school, you have your job, and you're doing basically all this work towards the voting and stuff, what would you tell maybe young people in high school who are maybe like affected by the virus or like the pandemic? Like, how are you gonna how do they start something up like you did, or how do they not burn out, kind of?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's speaking from my own experience. It has been asking teachers, do you know what's going on in the city? Do you know what's going on in the school board, especially right now during the pandemic?
Yeah.
What are the things that are changing? What things I can participate in?
Mm.
Right now, a lot of people are looking for the insights of students, especially because they're going to be the ones mainly impacted by the pandemic and how school system is going to change.
Yeah.
So, just put out a question there. You're definitely going to get somebody that's going to tell you, oh, that's good, you come right in time. And you're going to be able to give your own opinion and be able to get involved in a process which is going to impact a lot more people in the future. So that's one of the things that I mainly do. I mainly ask questions: what's going on here? How can I help? And on the way that I cope with having to deal with the many things that I do is that strong motivation.
Yeah.
There are some times in which that motivation kind of runs out of steam, and then you're just there thinking, "Am I really going to accomplish something? Am I really going to get something done?" But what I learned when this goes back to the graduation movement, what I learned was that at some point, when we started raising up money, we actually only got to $1,400 raising up money, and that's when the superintendent said, "Stop it! We're going to do everything we can."
Yeah.
Once they saw us that we were really about what we were doing, that we were really committed, then that's when they responded.
Yeah.
And so the key is to just keep pushing.
Yep.
At some point, you're gonna get a response from the people that are in power. Even if you lose some motivation, just keep working on it. At some point, you're gonna get a response,
Yeah.
and that's what I do. Keep on persevering, even when things don't look that good. At some point, there was one of my classmates that told me, "You're trying to raise $60,000. That's not going to happen. They're not going to give you that money." And we ended up getting
Yeah.
$170,000.
Yeah.
So that goes to show that things do happen when you fight
Yeah.
for them.
You just have to keep pushing, and especially for young people, it might be hard to just feel heard by like older people or like people in power. So yeah, I think you're a very great example of how young people can just keep pushing and get the change they want done.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for today for Activated Thursday. Um, if anyone has any questions, they can comment us or DM either of us. Make sure to tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. for one of these interviews with great activists like Manuel. So yeah, that was great. It was great talking with you and very nice to meet you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, Chris, and nice to meet you as well.
Okay.
All right,
Have a good day.
you too. Bye bye.
Bye.